Our guest today is co-founder of East Nashville Beer Works, a community and taproom-centric brewery. I love that phrase. And because nothing is more iconically and authentically blue-collar than a cold pint at the end of a hard day's work, we knew we had to have him on the show. And then we read what was on his website. It's on the About Us page, and for me, it sealed the deal. I don't know about you, Taylor, but it says, at East Nashville Beer Works, we try every day to make damn good beer, period. Failing that, all the marketing in the world matters not.
That's it.
Well, Taylor and I can definitely drink to that.
We can, and hopefully we will really soon because you brought beer.
That's right. Proud Nation, please welcome to the show head brewer and driver of the Winnebago at East Nashville Beer Works, Sean Jewett.
Thank you. Well, glad to be here, guys.
Absolutely. Glad to have you. And you did bring beer, so we can't. I don't want to go any further in this interview until we actually get this beer open.
Let's crack open the beer.
Tell us a little bit about it. So.
All right. Yeah. So what I brought for y'all is the Miro Miel and our Young Hickory. Those are two different beers that we're currently canning right now.
Yeah.
The Miro Miel is one of the first recipes I started working on as a home brewer. It's brewed with local honey. We get it from Johnson's Honey Farm just up Dickerson Road here in Nashville. So within about 5 miles of the brewery, I get the honey that goes into each batch of that beer.
That's awesome.
And then the Young Hickory is a hickory smoked porter. We smoke the grains ourselves in the smoker out back at the brewery. It takes about 4 days total to get all the grain we need smoked for each batch of beer. And but 4.5%, something you want to sit around a fire pit and drink on a nice cool evening. Very sessionable, pairs well with s'mores and obviously smoked meats and whatnot. The Miro Miel goes good with just about anything.
Yeah,
so.
just a good all-around beer for sure.
This is our best-selling beer, and it's funny. I had a conversation with our distributor, and his comment was, "Well, I don't want to tell you to, I know some brewers don't like brewing the same beer every day," and I'm like, I brewed this all the time as a home brewer, so it's fun to brew it on a much larger scale. So
nice.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers. Absolutely. Glad to have you. Thanks for the beer.
You're welcome.
Cheers, man.
You bet, man. All right. It's a good beer.
Oh, that's tasty. That is good stuff. Okay.
Thank you.
Obviously, there is a connection between blue collar, everything blue collar, and beer, just as almost a primal thing, right? And it harkens back to a time, long before Anheuser met Busch. It goes back to a time where beer was kind of the center of working class community and neighborhoods.
There is some literature out there that suspects that the reason why we settled down was to be able to grow those cereal grains, which were important for making beer.
Yeah.
So there's a good literature out there that says beer is the reason why we've come together as a community.
So community is important. The tap room as the center of that community. Talk a little bit about your decision to grow your business in that way, around that, rather than as some big distribution hub for another microbrew.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a very good question. Part of it stems from the fact, so I grew up in Southern Illinois, just outside of St. Louis. So talk about blue collar. Belleville's a big town. Muscuta's where I grew up, but we're 30 minutes outside of St. Louis. As I tell people, Mom, apple pie, Cardinals baseball, and Anheuser-Busch beer.
That's it.
Of course, I grew up on the Illinois side of the river, so it was Stag beer country. But so for us, it was important, in particular, me visiting various breweries, doing my research, especially when I got up to Michigan, another good blue collar, area of the country. They have these amazing tap rooms with amazing beer and amazing food. And I thought, boy, if we could just get a little bit of that here in Nashville, wouldn't that be a great thing? And that's not to say that the other breweries here in town aren't doing that.
Sure.
And there are some breweries that are doing some really good things, both with food and beer. But we just thought, boy, beer and pizza, and then just having a tap room that's open 7 days a week, so we can get those neighborhood regulars, but also be able to get the travelers. We located close to the interstate to get people passing through town.
Right.
So yeah, it was just kind of, the main thing was we knew we had to have a tap room that was open 7 days a week, but we also wanted to be able to distribute the beer outside of it. We didn't want to be just tap room only.
Sure.
You can't survive on that alone.
No, it's tough. Yeah. But you started. I'm sorry, Taylor. I cut you off.
Well, no, I just want to hear a little bit about the story from how you started home brewing, and then how did that evolve into a business? Yeah.
Well, so I spent 13 years doing IT for academia here in town for Vanderbilt University. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to work on a master's program, and it was a master's in liberal arts and science. So the thing about that was it was a chance to explore. I was trying to figure out what was next. I was bored with IT. I knew I wasn't going to do IT. It was just what was next. So one of the classes, I was assigned reading History of the World in 6 classes, Botany of Desire from Michael Pollan, and then his other book, Omnivore's Dilemma. Those 3 books got the wheels turning, and I thought, I have friends that are brewing at home. I should look into this. And at this point, I'd gotten really into craft beer, and and then started basing my travels on where do I go and where do I get the good beer, preferably hiking and good beer. Bring those 2 together if possible. So as I was finishing up that degree, I was like, the minute I finish this degree, I'm going to get the home brewing equipment. I'm going to learn how to brew. And so that was going on about 8 years ago. And I had a good friend of mine that I had known for a number of years show me the ropes. And he said, why do you think you want to do this? And I said, well, maybe one day I want to open up a brewery. And he's like, what I'm about to show you is completely different from what goes on at a larger scale. And I'm like, well, I've got a 1-bedroom apartment. I have to start somewhere. This is the place to start. Also, let's make investments wisely in terms of start small and then just kind of build up. So within a year or 2, I went from 5-gallon batches on the stove to doing 10-gallon all-grain batches, and then just trying to brew as much as possible. And then from there, one of the early recipes is the Smiro Miel, which is we're holding in our hands, and took that to a party, and it went over really well from what I remember, because it was an early evening for me. People still talk about that party, which is pretty funny. But the story on that was I had been brewing the beer. Friend said, can you brew this for my birthday? I said, sure. You supply the honey, I'll supply the beer. And so he hooked me up with the honey. Well, the bee farmer came up to me and he said, just so you know, I can taste the differences in this honey in this beer. He said it was a weird harvest for us because it was a mild winter and the bees kept producing, but all the clovers and pollens that they got into were completely different. So that was kind of a light bulb moment. It's like, whoa, hey, I'm onto something here with this. And so not all of our beers are locally focused and don't necessarily have that local angle, but that I knew was an important part was try to give a different angle, make something very approachable to a lot of people, but also have a good story behind it. And then that just kind of drove my brewing. So from there, I started working on American Wheat Ale, inspired by Bell's Oberon. It's not a clone by any means. It's got legs of its own, but we call it Cumberland Punch. Because if you live in Nashville and you're drinking the tap water, you're drinking the Cumberland Punch. We brew with Nashville's water. Nashville's water is really good to brew with. A number of award-winning beers have been brewed with that water. So for me, it was kind of important to raise awareness that the Cumberland River is our water source, and you can make great beer with it. So,
Absolutely.
So that's, I don't know if that's answering your question, but these are kind of all the confluences that just kind of came together to start brewing.
So what I know about brewing, and the sum of what I know can be written on the back of a cocktail napkin, so I want to be clear about that. But what I know about brewing is that, there's a basic recipe, right? It goes, if you want to get really technical, it goes all the way back to the Reinheitsgebot, and
we can get into that. It's one of those, me as a brewer, I don't adhere to that German beer purity law.
I don't either.
I think it's a great thing. I tell people it boiled beer down to a science, and then from there we were able to go, if we do this with the malts, we can get these flavors. If we do this with the hops, we get these flavors. If we do this with the water, we get these outcomes.
And so that's kind of my point is that there's a starting point, but most of what we consider craft brew now kind of looks at that as the jumping off point. And certainly, you have to, there's certain, in any craft, in any trade, you have to master some basics. And from there, then you start really crafting. You start really bringing your artistry to what you do.
Yeah, and it's good that you mentioned mastering the basics. One of the things I realized early on when I started brewing was if I'm going to get better at this, I come from a music background. I played trombone in school, went to MTSU to do the music industry program, graduated with that degree, and promptly went, I'm not going to work in the music industry. But one of the things I realized was I need to treat this like a musical instrument. The more I practice it, the better I'm going to get. And so I just started this once a week Wednesday night brew session at my apartment. I get off work, come home, start brewing beer, and then usually about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, I'd be wrapped up and ready to go to bed, and usually a few beers in me too. But that was one of those things where I realized the more I do this, the better I'm going to get. It also gave me incentive to brew in terms of, hey, friends' party's coming up. Here's a good reason to brew this batch of beer. And then, the other part is just get that repeatability. That is very important as a brewer, and it's something, scaling up I still struggle with, but I think for the most part, it's
repeatability, scaling. That's all. Now we're starting to talk about the business side of this. What was the moment where you said, okay, this is going to break out of the bedroom and this is going into a business? I mean, when did you have the confidence in the product and the consistency to be able to say, I'm going to do this?
I had the confidence pretty early on, and some of it was from friends, and I would tell people, don't rely on your friends. Of course, your friends are going to tell you the beer is good, but when I started getting into the hands of other people and then just watching the kegs kick at parties and just, kind of being a fly on the wall, seeing people's reactions, that's when I was like, all right, I think we're doing I'm doing something right here. So then it became a question of trying to find the business partner to try to move things along, because at the end of the day, I brew beer. I am not a businessman. So
smart number one. That's something
that
really,
in itself is a business decision.
But that's. Let me stop here because I just want to make this statement. There are people that are such great technicians that do want to have their business, and sometimes finding a business partner to do that is a better decision than trying to go out and do it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
there is no way I could have done this on my own.
So that's a good lesson to learn just right there. So that's good.
Well, let's talk a little bit about partnerships too, because that's a risky form of business.
It is a very risky
Taylor
form
and
of
I have done it, and we've done it successfully, but 9 times out of 10 it doesn't work. Talk a little bit about your partnership and your decision to go into that.
So, I mean, I knew I had to have a partner, and it was just a question of trying to find the right person. So through a confluence that, again, comes back to beer, through a beer drinking group that used to meet at the Flying Saucer, I had some mutual friends with the person that became my business partner, and he had put out on Facebook, hey, I'm looking for someone that brews beer. Anyone know anyone? And several people just went, you all need to get in touch with each other now. And so we sat down, and one of the things that was important for me was the marketing, which was his strong suit, is marketing and sales. And we agreed that, especially growing up outside of St. Louis, I got to see a lot of, obviously, advertising in the beer industry. Right. And so for us, it was trying to avoid sexist marketing, definitely trying, there are a number of women out there that like to drink beer. So it was very important for us to be able to not only appeal to that market, but not feel like we're cheapening the beer or cheapening the experience for them. So, and then on top of that, he had been working with the graphic designer that, did the work on the cans you see here, plus our website and all that other stuff. And once I saw what the graphic designer was coming back with, I'm like, this is exactly what I want. I am proud to put my beer in a can that looks like this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And it's good beer.
Thank you.
So there's some part of business is process and systems that allow you to be able to scale and actually put your product in a can like this.
Yes.
And I know that canning is something that, it requires some scale before that becomes affordable.
So and it's for us, it's been a very interesting walk on that. I'll be honest with you, my business partner kind of drug us into the canning, kicking and screaming. Our keg washer was giving me fits, and I'm like, can we get the keg washer fixed first before we put beer in the cans? On the other hand, the marketing opportunities that the cans have opened up have just been immeasurable. It's definitely opened up a lot of doors to get us on draft at places.
Right.
It's just a good marketing tool. Our distributor reps can take these beers with them out to sell the beer for draft, and not have to either stop by the tap room and get beer or have to have a keg on draft at the distributor. So there's a lot of advantage to it. But yeah, you're right. The margins are very slim. And especially with the way we've gone about it doing the shrink wrap, if we get the pre-printed cans, it's a lot cheaper, but we were looking at, it was 10,000 minimum order cans, and at the end of the day, just remember, you're paying for raw material, and then on top of that, you have to still, put the logos on the can.
Yeah.
And then now it's the rumblings are that it's up to 20,000 can minimum order. So that's a huge chunk of money to lay out for pre-printed cans.
Sure.
Which is why we did the shrink wrap. And it's a good way to go and good way to get your beer out there. Just make sure what you're putting in there is good stuff, because one of the guys from Green Flash recently made the comment that a lot of breweries are opening up and immediately putting their beer in cans, and it's not good quality beer.
Yeah.
And so, that's, be making good quality beer. I mean, that's
back. Yeah.
Well, I'll just tell you, my youngest son is a chef for a place called Alamo Draft House.
Okay. Yeah.
Out in Colorado. Yeah. And his forte is putting together the meals, and he visits a lot of breweries. In fact, that's one of the things when he comes out here this summer we're going to be doing. So
come on by.
I'm sure
We'd
we'll
love to
come
host
by.
you. Yes.
Because what he does is he pairs that with food. So my question is, there's so many out there. He's made this comment that, the whole thing about beer is if you don't have somebody that really knows what they're doing, they can mess it up in a New York minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had people contact them and say, hey, can you do our dinner with our beers? And he said, man, I have really had to say no because it's just bad beer.
Yeah.
So
Good for him,
yeah.
too. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what's going on in the craft beer world. I want to hear a little bit more about that.
So the big news that dropped like a bombshell for most of the craft beer nerds yesterday was Wicked Weed being purchased by Anheuser-Busch InBev. So Wicked Weed has been open a little over 5 years now. They're based out of North Carolina in the Asheville area.
Mm-hmm.
And they make some incredible beers. And I can't fault them for saying this is the way we grow our company going forward, but at the same time, too, a lot of what has happened in craft beer is a result of Anheuser-Busch.
Right.
Trying to be the McDonald's of beer, and no one wants to eat McDonald's every day, and people want some variety, and that's what's happened with craft beer. So that's been the big thing. Some of the bigger players like Sierra Nevada, New Belgium, they're having some issues. They've kind of maxed out in terms of their footprint into basically hitting every market in the U.S. Hitting every state in the U.S. And then it's one of those. It's really interesting to watch how they navigate these waters because it's people are kind of going a little more local, and so these big regional or national breweries like Sierra Nevada and New Belgium are having to step up their game, which is good on some levels, but on the other hand, they've always been great breweries,
right?
And that's kind of the frustrating part is to see those sales decline for them. And it's not been huge, but they're definitely kind of
feeling some pressure.
They're feeling some pressure. Stone is another one that's been feeling
right.
some pressure, and it's how do you go about that? How do you keep yourself current and relevant? And again, for us, it was like we have to have this tap room, and don't get me wrong, all three of those breweries that I just mentioned have wonderful tap rooms and great experiences for the customers. But they also have geared themselves to be national players,
right.
and so for us, we're a regional player. We distribute within Davidson County and the surrounding counties, and that's a good goal for us is to get on tap as much as possible in our distribution footprint. So it's. Overall, beer sales are declining, but a lot of those are coming from the Bud Miller Coors products. But then when you have a Wicked Weed purchase, it's going to be interesting to see if like AB InBev, who purchased them, is going to be able to turn that around into bigger profits down the road,
right?
Without cheapening the product or taking shortcuts and. It's a really interesting time.
So do you guys have plans to scale the business, open up another tap room in another place, maybe, distribute a little bit further, or do you want to really stay kind of in the local regional space?
So personally for me, since I still have family in the Southern Illinois area, if we're going to expand into another state and into another market, that would be the place I'd like to go just so I can go home and buy my beer. But, mainly we want to, obviously Tennessee, across Tennessee would be the first goal.
Right.
And then from there, just kind of, growing where it makes sense. So for now, with the brew house that we have sized in the space that we have, so we have a 4,000 square foot facility, and you're looking at about 1,000 to maybe 1,500 feet is for the brew house. We've got a little bit more space to grow, but ultimately the idea is at some point we'd open up a separate production facility.
Okay.
But when that's going to be determined. That's just kind of one of those. We still have we haven't even been open a year yet at the tap room. So
oh wow,
yeah. We opened in August of 2016, and it's gone well. But at the same time too, it's one of those. We need to make sure that if we are going to take on a production facility, that we have the sales there to support it, and then we're going to be able to.
Right.
Move all that beer.
Yeah.
Sure.
What kind of outlay? You think about the equipment and the brewing supplies and everything. I mean, 1,500 square feet for dedicated to to brewing a product is a lot of square feet. What sort of cash outlay does a brewery have to even start with in order to go into business?
It's the old joke in radio. You want to make a little money in radio, start with a lot.
Yeah.
There you go.
So for us, I can tell you that the equipment was about $200,000. We got quotes from a couple of different companies, Premier being one of them, and that's one that a lot of breweries around Nashville use. Okay. And they make really good equipment. But we ended up hooking up with a guy out of Memphis who was sourcing the equipment from China and sourcing it from one of the Chinese suppliers that is doing higher quality work than some of the other equipment that's coming over here. So, so there was that aspect, and then from there. It was build out of the space. Right. We have a small kitchen. We don't have an exhaust, so we don't have a grill or anything or a fryer, just because that's a huge outlay of money to get the oven hood. And then from there, it was kind of what can we do to save money? So the front half of the building was originally office space that was built within the shell of this metal building. So we demoed all of that office space. We saved all the 2x4s, reclaimed them, reused them for as much of the build out as possible. There's a lot of other wood that we reused in that manner. One of the things I'm really proud of is the fact that one of our investors had bought a church over here in East Nashville. And I said, well, does it still have the pews? And he's like, yeah, why? And he's like, you got an idea? And I was like, as a matter of fact, I do. It's some of our booth seating. It's all of our countertops. It's our bar top. It's all pew wood that we reclaimed and turned into that. So, we saved costs on some of the tables and whatnot. And we have kind of a unique story, and it's a nice surface to drink beer on too.
Exactly. That's great. That's great.
There's you can make some jokes right there.
Yeah. I think I'm not gonna go there. I've already went no. No.
Oh man.
This is kind of the way that goes.
Well, I'm sitting here drinking this, and it's just really, I'm drinking the Mira Meal, and it's just a great ale.
Thank you.
I gotta
Thank
say.
you.
Yeah. You should be proud.
Thank you. It's one that I hope Nashville's proud of. So the meal is Spanish for honey, and then this area of Tennessee, when it was under Spanish rule in the late 1700s, was known as the Miro District, and so that's how I came up with the name.
Oh wow!
And of course, one of our other investors is Venezuelan, and he pointed out that all the Spanish I had in school went right out the door because he said, "Oh, it should be Mio Miro," and I was like, "Well, yeah, but that doesn't roll off the tongue as well." And,
right. Yeah.
But yeah, and that's one of the things too that I liked about my business partner with the marketing was we had an idea of like, all right, we want to try to play up things that are very interesting and unique about East Nashville, and obviously Miro Meal's Nashville, Cumberland Punch is Nashville, but we have a beer called East Bank Citra IPA. We have another one called Roaming Dog, and the joke is, if you stay around East Nashville long enough, you're going to see packs of roaming dogs.
Yes, you will.
Yeah. We have another one called Hipster Dance Party, which is named after a dance party over at the 5 Spot.
Nice.
And so try to play that up and not try to be too cheesy or cheeky about it, but at the same time, definitely put some of that community.
Yeah, appealing to the community that you're a part of.
Yes.
So let's talk about community.
Yes.
I mean, this beer in the tap room enables a place for people to come and just, do you find a lot of regulars that are just there and this is their place, this is their tavern, their pub,
Yes, yes. And that happened right away. A lot of people from the neighborhood came out right when we opened. We're like, we've been waiting for you to open. Thank goodness we have a place to drink around here now.
Yeah.
That's been really good. The neighborhood support has been wonderful. I can't say enough good things about our neighbors at Red Dog Scooter across the street and then Custom Sling. Talk about two blue collar guys. Really, really working hard. Those two have been nothing but supportive and very helpful in us getting the brewery open. So, that's been kind of that beer is community. So we take care of our friend at Custom Sling all the time. He lets us park in his parking lot. So let's just say the beer is on us.
I wanted to say something to Carter here just a minute because we're going to get back to you. You remember when we were in Germany?
Yeah.
And the stories about the monks brewing the beer and creating all the community in Germany. So it's very much like that. I mean, people don't realize how much the local taverns, and you go to Boston, you go to some of these other places that have just had it just ingrained.
Growing up outside of St. Louis.
Yeah.
There's the Corner Tavern, in every neighborhood. It was not the end of the world if you came in there with your kids because they were there for the food. Of course, then there's the stories of sending the kids down with the beer pail to get it filled up for their father.
That's
and then,
it.
Yeah. So that's part of what I miss about living in the Midwest was that there are these family-friendly environments. We are a family-friendly tap room. We do want you to bring your kids in there. Please drink responsibly, but at the same time, like we don't. Where are these parents supposed to go once they have kids? Their life doesn't cease to exist once they have kids. They've got to be able to go somewhere.
Thank you.
Yes.
As a father, on behalf of other fathers and families, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, no, it's.
Well, I'm fixing to break open the other one.
Okay, you're going to get into the porter?
Tell me a little bit about the porter.
So I had worked for a distillery here in town for a little while, and while I was there, they had started smoking grains, and they asked me if I wanted to do that, and I said sure. And why not? I mean, I brew beer, and most of distilling is basically brewing beer to then turn around and turn into higher alcohol. And so after I had done a run of Hickory smoked malts, they were like, "Oh, take some home and brew with it." And I thought, boy, what am I going to brew? Because for the most part, I brew a lot of IPAs and obviously Miramiel. Yeah. But you like that?
Oh, man.
All right, give me the other one.
I'm telling you. Dude.
I'm going to be finishing. So,
I know. Hello, that is a Blue Collar Show.
So, yeah,
oh my gosh, this is good.
Thank
you. I like the Miramiel too.
It's very approachable.
It's very, very good. But I love porters.
oh my gosh.
See, is that not good?
Yeah, I should have started with this. No, actually, this is probably the better one to end up on. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Porter's one of my favorite, but a smoked porter is. Yeah. You brought the right beer, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would have brought more.
And this young Hickory. Is what this is called.
Yeah,
man.
So if you want to hit on, one of the things when opening up your own business to look out for is trademark issues. And so my background's music industry. I knew we had to do some trademark searches and whatnot, and we wanted to call it originally Fire Pit Porter. And we found out a brewery in New York had Fire Pit for their golden ale, so we reached out and said, "Hey, we're doing our due diligence. Any chance we could use this in the state of Tennessee? This is what we're doing." And they came back and was like, "Absolutely not." So at that point, it's like, all right, well, got to come up with something else. And obviously, Old Hickory is Old Hickory. Yep. And if you're driving through Nashville, even if you don't know about Andrew Jackson, you can't miss the signs for Old Hickory Boulevard.
They're everywhere.
So that's part of it is where they. Yeah. And then I believe it's James K. Polk was also known as Young Hickory. I actually did a little research, and there were a couple of people who know Young Hickory. But so that was kind of a fun little play on that as well. But I mean, it's definitely a little more Nashville, a little more Tennessee, calling it Young Hickory. And
I like the Hickory. I mean, it comes through. It's really good.
Yeah, it's about 4 days of smoking the malt and to get what we need, and then we immediately turn around and brew with it. So it's fresh smoked malt going right in there, and then we use a fair bit of chocolate malt and some brown malt, which gives it nice coffee, kind of a coffee note. Smooth. Yeah, and a little bit of black malt, and like I said, the whole idea was something to sit around a fire pit on a nice cool evening. Pairs well with s'mores, obviously pairs well with smoked foods. And
yeah. Darn. We need to, if it wasn't raining, we go to the fire pit and just go drink beer.
So one of the things that we celebrate in business is not only the successes, but the failures, and we think that failures should be celebrated, right? You learn one more way that something doesn't work.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've brewed some stuff that just were stinkers, not ever going to be tasted by the public.
No. We had 2 batches of what should have tasted good. The minute the yeast started fermenting on it, it was like, oh boy, something went wrong here, and we ended up having to dump 2 batches, which that was was a rough moment, especially because I hadn't got I was probably about 15, 20 batches in, and then that happened, and it's like, boy, this is the last thing we need right now is to have to dump $1,000 worth of ingredients right down the drain. But that's what we had to do. There was no way I could put it out on the market and try to pass it off as beer. It was bad. It was bad. So and that's one of the things. Sometimes you have those events that you think are going to go one way, and then they turn out another way. And sometimes for the better, and then sometimes you're like, oh yeah, well we're not going to do that one again. So
business is nothing if not experimentation.
Yes,
that's right.
Imagine that beer making is not much different.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of experimentation that goes into beer making, and the honey was kind of an experiment. I on the Miramiel, wanting to brew a cream ale, realized I didn't have the fermentation temperature control that I needed. Cream ales generally ferment around lager temperatures, so like 55, 60 degrees. And so I thought, well, maybe what I'm brewing is more of a blonde ale. Started doing research on blonde ales, and a lot of people were putting in corn sugar to get the alcohol but lighten the body. And I was like, I don't want to do that. That's cheap. And so I hit on honey, and then that got the ball rolling there. That was an experiment that worked out. Cumberland Punch, I'd been brewing a version of that recipe for a couple of years, and then I had some extra Citra hops laying around. I was like, let's put a little in here and see what happens. And I was like, ooh, boy, this got really good really quick. So, and this, Young Hickory was a total experiment, and thankfully there's a lot of literature out there for me to kind of go off of, and get some ideas of like just kind of more ratios. What percentage chocolate malt, what percentage brown malt, what percentage smoked malt, which is about 10% in the Young Hickory. And so, but yeah, that was one of those. I knew I didn't want to go above 10%. I didn't want to smoke bomb. But yeah, so right out of the gate, I knew, all right, I've got the right amount of smoke in there, and then it just became tweaking the other specialty grains.
It's nice.
Yeah, it really is good.
Thank you. Thank you.
As we drink.
So, you have employees.
We do.
How many?
We have. It's kind of hard to keep up. We actually just hired on some employees because of the summer months. So we have a nice outdoor space. Again, I wanted a nice space, sit outside on a nice day. And one of the reasons why we're open 7 days a week is so when we have that nice day, we're open.
Yeah.
There used to be a place. This place is still here in town, but they used to be closed on Sundays, and it was one of the best places to drink beer in town. But that patio was closed on Sundays, and I can't tell you the number of times it's like, oh, I'd like to go drinking there, but not today.
Wow.
And then one of those, when are you going to remember to do that again?
Right.
So it was one of those, I don't want the customers to give them any reason to forget about us. Like, the patio's open. So we've just hired on some more bar staff. So we have about five to six front of house staff members. We have a taproom manager, and then 4 people under her, and then we have 3. I think we just hired on a 4th person for our kitchen as well. Just again, staffing up for the summer for the busier months and making sure that we're taking care of the customers.
Cool.
So what have you learned just about having people? I mean, in a business, people complicate things quickly, exponentially.
Yes. And I can complicate things. For us, for our taproom manager, she had waited on me a number of times at Bosco's, used to be the brew pub in Hillsborough Village here in Nashville, and that closed down a few years ago. And I just thought, boy, if we could get her behind the bar, and if we could get more of her behind the bar, that would be wonderful. And so that was the key first hire that we made was bringing her in to be our taproom manager, and she has done a wonderful job in that regard, which is awesome because that means I'm not having to worry about the taproom while she's there. And then just trying to find staff that are passionate about beer, that can talk with the customers, that are definitely friendly. And just being able to communicate what we're doing with the beer, and then obviously be able to take orders and make sure that it gets back to the kitchen and that kind of thing. Yeah. So
I think one of the things you did right there is really important to just highlight as well, is hire the key person that is the key person and get them in there. Know that they're who you need.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what you guys did.
Yeah, and for me, I had experience working in a tap room. I'd worked in a couple, when I left Vanderbilt, I had done a couple of jobs in the beer industry. It was one of those, I had to jump at some point. And I had this conversation with a friend recently, and she's like, I'm miserable in my job, but I'm risk averse. And I said, at some point you have to jump. And I said, you don't know when it's going to be, but you're going to know when the time's right. And for me, there was things happening at Vanderbilt that I was like, I might lose some benefits and whatnot because they were restructuring a lot of things. And it was just kind of one of those. And I was also burnt out, and I was really, really into beer at that point. And so the opportunity came along to start working for a tap room here in town, and I made that jump and haven't regretted it. I wake up every morning not having to worry about cleaning viruses off of Windows systems. So that was
that already starts out a pretty good day.
Yeah. Every day I wake up and I'm like, well, I'm not cleaning viruses off a Windows system. It's going to be a great day.
It's going to be a great day because I'm also going to have a beer sometime.
Yeah. So, but it's one of those. I don't have enough time to run the tap room. My business partner didn't have any tap room experience coming into this, so that was very important for us to find that person that knew how to keep tabs on the kitchen, make sure that everything was just working perfectly, put the systems into place that we needed, especially that grand opening weekend. She said, like, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and thank goodness she did, because it would have been a mess had she not.
Well, and secondly, the fact that you guys knew that she was the right person and you guys just backed off and let her do it.
Yes.
Man,
Yeah.
that's big.
Yeah.
That's
Totally.
big.
Yeah, and and she loves beer, and she took great care of me at Bosco's, and that was and it was that was the main thing, was just watching her other interactions, sitting there at that bar there, and just watching her interactions with other customers. And yeah, we definitely have customers that are coming because she's working.
Because she's there.
Because she's there.
That's
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you guys meet, in terms of thinking about the business, you as partners and other key employees, do you guys meet on a regular basis to talk about next steps and here's what we're doing and why and all that?
Yeah, so a couple of months ago, it was one of those, we were just not syncing up right, and so we all sat down and was like, we have to meet at least once a week just to go over upcoming events, staff issues, what's coming up, in the kitchen, what are we, just what's going on. Also kind of giving the heads up, here's what beers we're working on. And so, yeah, it's weekly meeting's important. There's some times where it'd be nice to meet a little more often, but at the same time, too, just that, to sit down that every Tuesday and try to just get some things hashed out has been important.
Checking in with each other,
Yes.
making sure you're playing off the same playbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's especially when you have front of house and back of house, product side, there's all of these kind of divisions that need to really respect each other and know that you're playing off of the same playbook, because you get out of sync there and it can become a train wreck really quick.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
That's
Man,
awesome.
I hate to cut this short because I still got beer left.
I'm going to drink mine, whether we're short or not.
All right, well, let's bring it down to, this has been a great interview, Sean. I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to talk with y'all, and I get to talk about beer all day. So it's a wonderful life to be living right now.
Well, I want to tell
awesome.
people where they can find the website, learn more about you. We've got listeners all across the world, but for those that would be interested in checking out your website, where do they go?
Yeah, we are at eastnashbeerworks.com, eastnashbeerworks.com, and or just Google East Nashville Beer Works. We're located on 320 East Trinity Lane, in between I-65 and Ellington Parkway. So if you're Nashville based and heading home up that way, quick trip off of Trinity Lane from those two roads, and you'll be right there at the tap room.
Even if you're nowhere near Nashville, check out their website if you're even thinking about a tap room or a brewery. These guys are doing it right.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, Sean, we always end our interview by asking for a quote. And I was wondering if you could just give us a quote, something that's meant something to you, and maybe you can tell us what it means to you.
So one of the quotes that stuck with me, and working on that master's program at Vanderbilt, I had a philosophy class because I never had any philosophy classes as an undergrad. Again, it was a chance to explore. And so the professor had us read Peter Taylor, who was one of the agrarian authors at Vanderbilt. There was a whole group of authors and poets known as the agrarians. And Peter Taylor wrote a book, a series of stories called Stories from the Miro District. And in there, the line, the grandfather refers to Nashville as the Miro District, and he says, because only an antique Spanish name could do justice to the grandeur that Nashvillians claim for themselves. And I thought that's kind of a cool thing. And then the other quote I'll give you is, I was telling my assistant brewer this a couple of weeks ago. We were tasting on one of the beers, and we were really enjoying it, and I said, you know what, it takes to brew great IPA? And he's like, what's that? I said, great malt.
Great malt.
I mean, you can have all the hops in the world, but you've got to have that good strong malt backbone to make that beer really shine.
That is so true.
So for all you homebrewers out there that have been wondering why you can't brew a really good IPA, there you go.
Get back to the foundation.
It's it.
Yeah, that's
it.
That's great. I got to remember where I am because I've had close to 2 beers now, and one of them's a session. So let's see. What am I doing? Sean Jewett, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks again for having me, gentlemen.
Yeah, it's been great.
Cheers.